More than anything else on the agenda today, it's the cost of bike sheds actually that are infuriating people. It costs about I should explain if you're just tuning in. It turns out that the OPW spent €335,000 on a bike shed for 18 bikes. So about 18 grand a bike it works out as. Now, you're probably like me, you expect it comes with all the bells and whistles. Apparently not. There are no gates in front of it. There's not even screens on the side to shelter it. In fact, some TDs have complained that they're not putting their bikes in it because they're still too exposed to the elements in this bike shed that costs €335,000. About 10 grand was spent on quantity surveying service, about 3 grand on archaeological services, which I understand actually if you're going to be building and digging up around Leinster House. But then the rest of it, the guts of well over €300,000 on a bike shed. 18,000 for one bicycle at Leinster House. If you were to provide one bike space for each TD and Senator, you'd have to spend 4 million for a bike shed. Gary in Cork wonders if there's valet parking included, and Frank from Cavan points out it would take over 22 years of tax paying from the average worker to pay for that bike shed. Christ on a bike, says Frank. Well said. 087 1400 106. Owen O'Brien is Sinn Féin's housing spokesperson, party TD as well, and he's with me here to talk about their new housing plan launched today. Before we get to that, Owen, this is a massive, an eye-watering amount of money to spend on a bike shed, isn't it?
Sure, and like your listeners, all I know is what's in the newspapers. It wasn't something I was aware before. I don't have a bicycle, although my partner takes her electric bike into Leinster House. But this is the kind of stuff that drives people mad.
Yeah.
And I suspect the really cumbersome procurement rules are probably behind this. I'd also suspect if they'd had an open competition for men's sheds across the country to see who could provide something at a more reasonable cost that's sensitive to, obviously, the very historic nature, you got it much cheaper. So we really do need to look at the way in which we procure public works contracts, because while this might be just one example, there's lots and lots of examples of stuff that just costs far too much money.
Michelle McLean is with me. She's the political reporter with the Irish Examiner. Michelle, what can you tell us about this lovely new bicycle shed that they've got in Leinster House?
Yeah, so this is raising some eyebrows around the place. It emerged yesterday that this new bike shed, it holds 18 bikes, cost more than €335,000. So the breakdown of that shows that €322,282 was spent on the main construction and the installation, but there was also archaeological services that had to be done, and that cost just under 3,000. And then almost 11,000 was paid for the quantity surveying service. So very expensive bike storage there.
Yeah, I mean, I understand the building it's located in Leinster House, that there'd be some sort of kind of archaeological bill, and we don't want them kind of wrecking the place when they're installing a bike shed. So to a degree, I can live with that. €11,000 to get somebody to cost the price of building a bike shed. I mean, the bike shed obviously is the big cost, over 300 grand. It is eye-watering amount of money, but even 11 grand on quantity surveyors for the cost of building a bike shed.
Yeah, it is concerning. Minister Eamon Ryan was speaking earlier today, and he did say that there are questions that will need to be answered by the OPW on this. He said it seemed to him to be incredibly expensive. He had been very much in favour of the installation of the bike shed, but was only made aware of the cost of it seemingly yesterday.
So have you seen this bike shed, Michelle? I mean, people's imagining if it costs 335 grand, it must come with all sorts of bells and whistles and maybe kind of the Swiss Guard patrolling outside it, making sure nobody steals Ivana Bacic's bike. What does it look like?
I actually could not tell you. For as expensive as it was, it has not picked up on my radar. But I'm a pedestrian, so I have no use.
So this is a bike shed. So 335. How many bikes did you say it can fit inside
18.
it? Okay, so about €18,000 per bicycle is the cost of it. And as I said earlier in the show, it was kind of, I think, Ken Fox who obtained the figures through a Freedom of Information request. I mean, there's going to be echoes in people's minds of a famous printer, Michelle, that I think ended up costing the state about 1.4 million quid.
Yes, true. But at least we know the bike shed is being used. So that's a positive.
that is one small little bit of silver lining to an otherwise very, very grey cloud. I'll give them
Yeah.
that. Listen, Michelle, thank you for talking us through that. Michelle McLean is a political reporter with the Irish Examiner. Kieran, was it BAM that built the bike shed? You could write a book on it. That's if you can print it on your bike. Says Kevin. I think BAM are the main contractors with the Children's Hospital, though, you know, BAM, and I'm very, very want to stress this, BAM would absolutely attest that all of the cost overruns have nothing to do with them and the Children's Hospital. It's not even a bike shed, it's only a shelter. What a disgusting disgrace. This shower is still great at wasting our money, and then they would have the cheek to try and bribe us with more of our money in the budget. They wonder why our young are leaving the country. To the hard shoulder, says somebody else. The bike shed in government buildings is a red herring. You have to build an aesthetically suitable building in the public eye. Tony in Monaghan says, God give me patience. Kieran, please tell me the cost of that bike shed as a wind up. A standard steel container could hold 20 to 40 bikes and will cost you 10 grand. If you want to tart it up, get some local graffiti artists to paint it. Kieran, never mind the bike shed. 113 billion euro in social welfare paid in error, up from 86 billion last year. We can't do anything right in this country. I don't think it's 113 billion. I think the B's might be a typo there. I doubt we pay 113 billion in social welfare every year. That bike shed needs investigation. Who in their right mind send off on that spend? Accountability, please. Somebody else says it's only taxpayers' money and it's there to be squandered, misappropriated and stolen, says somebody else. 087 1400 106. Listen, to those pointing out that €335,000 in the grand scheme of things isn't a massive amount of money, I accept that, but it's still 335 grand of taxpayers' money that the OPW has decided to spend on a shelter for 18 bikes. And that's all it is. It is a little lean-to shelter. There are no gates. There is no security. It is just a shelter. €335,000, the price of a house to shelter 18 bicycles. When are they going to stop treating us with such utter disdain? That is the question I would ask. 087 1400 106. Back in a moment.